Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the You Should Know podcast. My name is Ryan Leary. He is William Tincup, and today we have a really special guest on. He is my favorite person in the world. He's my mentor. I look up to him. He's 37 years older than me. No, I'm kidding. Mr. Mark Feffer, how are you?
I'm good.
How's
Thank
that
you.
intro?
I like it. You can say that to me anytime you like. It's just
Look, hey, I'm just happy.
Ageism isn't a thing. Thanks, Ryan.
Ageism is
Appreciate
not
it.
a thing. I am the youngest guy on this call, and I am damn happy and proud about
Dude, here's
Yeah.
how you know your network is getting older.
it. You said this.
You go into LinkedIn and put in quotes, put in retired, and then put first level connections, and you will have at least 300 retired or semi-retired
Yeah.
people taking up your LinkedIn network.
Well, I was just thinking that anybody listening to this, I'm sure when they start, they're like, I wonder how old these guys are. And then 10 minutes in, they're all like, oh, that Leary guy, he's the youngest.
He is.
Mhm.
He is the youngest, and the
Yeah.
handsomeness. Is that how you say that word? Handsomeness.
if you don't know, then
It's a
doesn't
word. I know
apply.
it's a word. I know it's a word. Hold on, let me give you one of these. We're just going to
There you
switch
go.
topics right now. So Mark, welcome in. You have a new venture. Why don't you tell us about that, and we'll get the show kicked off.
All right. Thank you for having me, guys. It's good. It's always good to see you. I have, in January, I launched a product called Workforceai.news. It's an evolution of the HCM technology report, which I had founded and been editing since about 2018. The idea is to look at the business and the products, the marketing, the sales of AI products that are being used for HR and workforce management. And I call it a news service because I am really trying to stick to news and stay away from hype, stay away from everybody's opinion, because Lord knows there's enough people out there publishing that stuff. So just keeping it basically straight to news. And the my basic tagline or feeling is, if it's not about if it's not about HR technology and AI, I don't care about it. So I won't publish it.
So what
Anyway,
I
that's
took away from that, William, was he doesn't want our opinion.
No,
He just wants facts. So
that's what the
episode
kids
over.
say. That's what the kids say, Ryan.
Facts. Yeah,
Facts.
facts.
Well, I'm in your house right now, so I know facts don't really matter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. Thanks. So we had a discussion earlier today. Mark and I were talking about journalists of the past, Walter Cronkite, David Brinkley, Ted Koppel, those types of people. There's a bunch of examples where all they reported was the news. This happened.
Right.
or is happening, right? There was no editorializing or opinions or anything like that. You'd watch the news, you'd get the news, you'd form your own opinions or whatever. But now they're just, when you turn on any news outlet, it seems like the opinions, I was about to say Trump the news, but that's bad form. Anyhow, the opinions are more important than the actual news itself.
Yeah. Well, I almost feel like they're trying to make it analysis, but it's not. It's not analysis. It doesn't feel like analysis. I'll say that.
Yeah.
No, it's not. And when I started out, back in the days of the Telegraph or whatever, the company I worked for was a stringer company for ABC
When
News.
you said telegraph,
Yeah.
I thought Morse code.
No, that's actually what I meant.
Did you mean that? You meant that was the purpose?
I tried
I thought
not
it
to smile.
back in the days of the dinosaurs. I'm like, dude, we already done this bit. You're gonna take us back to the telegraph? All
I
right,
tried to
like
keep
Wells
a straight
Fargo.
face.
No, so this company I worked for, we did a lot of work for ABC News, and a crew went out and shut down an ABC News shoot, walked away from the correspondent and the producer, went back and called the news desk in New York and said, these guys are trying to fabricate the news. They're trying to whip people up to be angry and into a mob when that wasn't the vibe going on. So you even had the cameramen, and the technicians were as much thinking like journalists as the people on air. That's gone.
Yeah, probably to never return. But what you've done with your Substack newsletter is it is the news. It's, again, you're reporting, and I think probably a heavy emphasis on curating, because there's 10,000 stories in a week, but the ones that are the most relevant, given your experience of covering the news for a long time, is what makes your newsletter so special.
Yeah, you're right. It's the curation, because a couple of things about that. I mean, I publish daily the curated newsletter. It is I put it together by hand.
Right.
I'm reading all of these stories before I pick them. Spending a great bulk of the morning getting this package together, because there's so much out there.
Right.
I don't think anybody can keep track of it.
No.
And one of the reasons I like to focus on the business aspect is because that's another place where people really aren't writing about it very much. They're talking about what the products might do. They're talking about what their product will do. They're not really just talking about, this company, this vendor did a deal with, this company to integrate and bring people a new feature, something like that. But that's what the business is built on. Is it's not always the big story.
Right.
Yeah. So the topic that we're supposed to talk about, as much as I love talking about you, Mark, and I will be a paid subscriber. I promise you, I will get in there and I will be a paid subscriber.
I'll buy you lunch if you do.
That's worth it. That's
If
worth
anybody
it.
hears this and emails me and mentions lunch, I will buy you lunch and I'll take 20% off your subscription. Okay.
There you go. And just for the record, William did not say he was going to be a paid subscriber.
I'm
He had an
non-committal.
opportunity. He had an opportunity.
I'm non-committal on a lot of things. I find it best to keep the expectation very low.
Yeah. Yeah, he
In
doesn't
most
want to commit
facets
to
of my
one. I
life.
get it. I get it.
Yeah.
So, okay, so we're going to talk about all of the M&A activity in the space this year, or recent. Let's say not just this year, but recent. A lot of
Yeah,
trends, a lot of things happening. You want to kick us off with what you're seeing? What's interesting to you at the moment?
It's Q1 because it's 17 days to the end of Q1, so we don't have to go into last year.
Yeah.
Just the deals in January, February, and in March. I think we've seen enough stuff happen that we can probably start to kind of see some trends.
Yeah, and there's not a lot that's really made me sit up. I mean, there's been one or two, and actually some of the deals that have really got my attention, like Workday and Insperity, that wasn't an acquisition. I don't think that was more of basically a deal, and a distribution deal.
Right.
Gets Workday into PEOs, but I haven't seen anything that's really like knocked my excuse me. I haven't seen anything that has really knocked my socks off, and I'm thinking there might be a couple of reasons for that. I think one is the economy is perceived as squishy.
Right.
And somebody else can argue about whether or not it actually is, but I think that's making a lot of people want to just sit on their money and not bring in a bunch more debt to their company.
So what do you look for in a press release that announces a deal, or you're looking at Reuters or whatever, and you see something come across the wire, and you're like, so and so acquires so and so? What in that announcement gets your kind of perks you up a little bit?
It can be a couple of things, or a combination. One is the size of the deal.
Right.
If you have something like, well, Ultimate Software and Kronos, that wasn't a money deal.
Right.
But that level of transaction where you have two big players somehow getting into bed together, that's going to get attention. Another thing would be when a big player buys a really interesting smaller player.
Right.
An example of that might be Harvard's buying Pymetrics last year.
Right.
To me, actually, in some ways, the biggest question about that deal is, why didn't somebody buy Pymetrics sooner? Just an amazing company, really interesting, really,
Smart,
really
smart
smart.
people.
Harvard's not the outfit that I would have thought would acquire them, but they did. It's a very smart move. And even when you look at somebody, like say, again, a Workday or a Kronos or a Success Factors, sometimes they do these little deals that are just really interesting because there's sort of a hint that they're looking at some other paths that they haven't looked at before, or at least, taking a step toward putting real money into something that they haven't really, really put themselves into before.
Do you
Or
care if terms are disclosed, or does it send any red flags for you if terms aren't disclosed?
no, I think usually, unless it's a public company who's going to have to disclose it eventually,
Right.
I think owners just don't like to do that, and VCs just don't like it when
Draws a lot of
it
attention
happens.
to them.
And yeah, I mean, and if it's a big deal, it's going to be worth a lot of money. I mean, you can look
Right.
at the target's revenue, and my rule of thumb is triple it. And that's probably about the size of the deal. So that'll give you a good indication. But again, a lot of it is just the fact that the big guys did something, even if it was small. Because I don't think large companies like to buy others usually. I mean, it's a lot of work to buy and integrate another company.
If
So
the
I don't
plan
think
is to if the plan is to integrate, like
yeah,
when
Right.
it's 100 years ago, but when Taleo bought Verve, the plan was not to integrate. The plan was to acquire the customers. So they
yes,
bought them for the Attract, and I can't remember the other product's name, and to move those clients over to Taleo.
yep.
And to discontinue the Verve brand and technology. So like that was just we're going to take you out of you're going to take a competitor off the business.
But
Yeah.
even when you do that, there's time and money involved
Oh,
because
100%.
you buy a company and you're just going to leave the two operations separate. You still got to manage that new company. You still have to worry about compliance. You still have to worry about legal. All of those kind of things. So it might be in that case the workload is going more onto the executive level than the actual staff. But it's still something that the guys in the C-suite or the guys and the couple of women in the C-suite, they're still going to think about is what's this mean for our team and what's the impact going to be on the rest of the business.
Yeah. So there is a company that likes to buy other companies that's pretty big recently, anyhow. We call them Deal, right? You've seen these guys in the market, right? So curious to get your take on these guys. So they picked up Zavi, and the other one was PaySpace, right? Is that
Mm-hmm.
what it was called? PaySpace. Curious to get your thoughts on that. William and I spoke about it, talked about it a bit in the last couple episodes of the Barf, which if you're listening is our Sunday show. Check it out. It's a great news show. Little biased there, but I think it's pretty good. But curious to get your thoughts on that.
Is actually, I think the second deal you mentioned with the payroll
Hmm.
um, is I think it's the smaller deal, but it's kind of interesting to me just because I don't believe Deal had been really into that aspect
Right.
of HR before.
It seems
Um,
to me it's an arms race to do global payroll
yeah,
for not just
Hmm.
employees, but to do it for contractors as well. Basically, how do you get people paid in Zimbabwe? Okay, whether or not you work with them as a contractor or they're as an employee, etc., it's extremely difficult. What is there, 196 countries or whatever it is now? They
Yeah.
keep adding. They keep adding them. So it's hard for me to keep up with all of them. I only care about 7 or 8 of them anyhow. But the thing is how do you get money to those people? And with contracting and with the rise of the kind of freelance nation and all that
Right.
stuff, it's like, okay, how do I get? I remember Ryan. We did a show. We did an event a couple. It was during COVID, and we had a gal on that was a speaker from Nigeria, and
Oh
getting
yeah.
and getting her paid was
Mm-hmm.
damn near impossible. Like we had to pay her cousin.
What was her
I'm not
name? I
making this
forget.
stuff
Yeah,
up.
yeah,
We had to pay her cousin because her
yeah,
cousin had a Zelle account or some type of account
yeah. This
and
wasn't a
get money.
Nigerian prince. It was a real thing.
No. She's a sorcerer.
Yeah.
Um, so I think Deel and companies that are like Deel, so I mean they raised what $500 million. So VCs and the market sees the opportunity of, okay, we've got to transfer money from one place to another. How do we do that in a more seamless manner? If it's also having benefits and other additional services attached to it with employees, great. If it's just, I need to get money to a contractor that just did this thing, you can go through platforms and do, platform work like we've used what Fiverr and things like that. Like you can go through a platform and the platform has already got that stuff worked out. But
Yeah,
this
and
is a contractor that wants to work with you.
Well, and I think that payroll or contractor payment, let's just call it payroll across the
Yeah,
board.
yeah.
It's becoming more and more complicated for a whole lot of reasons. Compliance is the first
Yep.
and the most obvious. Then you've got to worry about exchange rates and all of that kind of stuff.
Yep.
And then the fact that the workforce really is global. I mean, you're going to hire people in more places, some of which you're probably not really familiar with, but you do have to make sure that they get paid.
And the
And
compliance in that it's got
compliance
to
in that
be
region. Yeah.
right in that
Well, that
area.
was the interesting thing or the big thing with PaySpace, which is the company that acquired. They're in 50 different countries currently. They have the infrastructure across 50 different countries and 6 continents, I think it was. Um, they're tracking towards and they want to be in 100 countries.
How many
That's their
continents are
goal.
there?
Don't ask me this. 7, right?
you talk about acquisitions, but I think there's going to be a time where all of these different payroll companies
You're
are going
making
to
my
start
thumb
buying each
hurt.
other.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah,
100%.
it hasn't happened yet, but I think
The other thing that I've seen so far, I don't want to get your take on it, is companies, again, whether or not big or small, buying AI companies. So we've seen a rash of these things from January on that like pretty much every week there's some little AI company getting bought. And I don't know if that's just an acqui-hire or they have a different bit of AI and they're just buying the tech. I don't know, but I have seen a bunch of them happen.
I don't know if you heard it, but as soon as you asked the question, my dog
Winston.
like howled. It
Oh,
was like
100%. Well,
so.
they won't answer.
Yeah,
That's all.
well,
No big deal.
look, Winston's a schnauzer, but he's a smart schnauzer. Um, I think it's both. And I think a lot of it is driven by the fact that nobody really knows what's going on in AI. And
100%.
I'm sorry, I'm not a PhD, I'm not a computer scientist, I'm not even a very smart business person, but this is just a whole lot of heat burning through a whole lot of dry grass right now. I
Couldn't
think
agree more.
acqui-hires are absolutely a part of it.
Yep.
And I think the bar, what you talk about, maybe a company wants to buy another company because they have interesting technology. I'm not sure that the bar is very high. What qualifies as interesting?
Well, it could be nuance. You've created a niche-oriented large language model. Okay, so you've created a large language model around customer success in the retail market. And so you've created this bit. Well, okay, well, you know what? I'm Walmart. I could go create that thing. It would take me a year, maybe 2 years, or I could just go buy that bit and bring that in.
Well,
It
yeah,
makes sense when
the
it's nuanced like that.
the company that you're buying, if they haven't thrown something out into the market already, so they have some data, they have some experience with
Right,
how it's working with actual customers.
right.
They've probably done a whole lot more research on that than the acquirer has in most cases, not all cases. So in that case, you're buying the technology as well as the expertise. But I think a lot of this, so much in AI right now is throwing stuff against the wall
Oh
to
yeah,
see what sticks. And I think a lot of these acquisitions sort of fall in the same category. We don't know what's going to happen with this, but it's kind of interesting right now. And if it does take off,
right.
we want to be there. So
So
let's buy the company.
do you remember? Can you remember back to like 97, 98, 99, and how people talked about the internet?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So there was people before that were on a version of the internet, message boards. They were on a version of, but not the modern internet,
The
not with the browser
ICQs of
based.
the world.
Right.
Yeah.
So like, but people were talking about this type of stuff in the same way as AI. It just seems like it's happening faster.
It is, and I think it is faster. My first job was with Dow Jones in their first, excuse me, in their first electronic newsroom in 1984.
Yeah.
I think you should bring Winston on the
I'm
podcast.
going to
He's
let him.
clearly.
You guys mind if I just?
Not at all.
You guys,
Not at all.
we'll just talk with ourselves, Mark. Go ahead.
Well, Ryan, you went through an acquisition when you were at Conexa.
Yeah, we did. We did. Yeah.
How was that process for you as an employee?
It was awful. You know what? I'm not gonna lie, it was awful. I loved. I drank the Kool-Aid at Conexa. I was a
Oh yeah,
Conexan. I was Conexa for life, 100%. In
yeah.
fact,
And Rudy
if
was
I
easy to follow.
if I could turn my camera, I would show you. I literally have. They're like 3 foot by 3 foot squares
Yes.
of the Tenexes. I have two of them here, which was our branding effort that we did way back then, and which is ridiculous. And I still literally have them sitting here in the corner. Part of it's because I don't clean. Second
Yeah.
is I actually like it. It's got color, and I can get rid of the gray walls and catch up to you. That said, but once we left
Look.
Conexa and we became IBM, I was 2G5772. So I went from
Yeah.
a person to that was my serial number, and it was awful. But Mark, to your point
What?
around or about the acquisitions, go what were you saying?
Okay. Can I let him go back to Dow Jones for a minute?
Oh
Because
Yeah,
yeah. Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Leave the
I think
conversation, then come back and change the
84.
subject. Go for it.
yeah.
That was the first electronic news desk.
First, it was the first. It
He
was
used
the
the
first
at
newsroom.
symbol.
Yeah, this was before the
Way
ads.
before that.
Um,
This is a dot matrix
he
printer.
This is
it
when he
was.
was talking to Al Gore about creating the at symbol.
That's
That's
right.
what it
Or
was.
even
Yeah,
teletype.
knowing me,
Did you do
working.
teletype? Did you read the teletype?
Uh,
Or,
we had them in the newsroom. That's actually the way at the time that the Wall Street
yeah,
Journal printed the paper every night, 18 different plants,
that's right. That's right.
was by putting everything out on the teletype.
And they didn't.
I
And Bloomberg hadn't created its. He hadn't created that modem where you
No,
could see Bloomberg yet.
no, and
so I
there weren't a lot of graphics. I mean,
Yeah.
there was one. The GIF file was the only real file at that point, and
Did you say GIF or GIF?
I said GIF.
Okay. All right.
because he's hungry, he wants
No,
the peanut butter. I know
no
dot
judgment.
matrix. I know dot matrix, but you got to
You
tell
know
me, guys,
teletype?
what is a teletype? Like, let the young guy in here. Come on.
It was basically a
I told you
machine
there
where.
was a reason why we went to ageism in the beginning. Just
Anyway,
saying.
That's a
you know
quote.
what it is. So in 1984, there were several services. Dow Jones News Retrieval, CompuServe, General Electric had one called Genie, that you could with a modem through your phone dial into the computer, to their computer, to the mainframe,
Right.
get data back to your personal computer in your home or office.
Okay.
Same thing basically that the web does today.
That's right.
It was just slower and cruder.
Yeah. Computers were the size of rooms.
Yeah.
I was
Something
6 years old at the time, so I was alive,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I
So
was not paying attention.
the thing that really made me sit up when the web in 1995 started to really gather steam was my mother suddenly understood what I did.
Yeah.
I'd been at Dow Jones for 10 years by that point, and when the web came along, my mother's like, "Do you do something with this internet? Is it something like that?" It's like, yes,
Yeah.
it's exactly that.
We'll just say.
Um,
But
but
the fever pitch around the internet was like, it was there. Like, you're going to be able to do well. And I ran a web development company around that later in that time. And it's like, I remember pitching customers or prospects, hey, you're going to be able to do this.
Yeah.
You're going to be able to do this. Most of what I said at that time, I believed, but it was based in no reality.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
It was all leaps of faith.
The
Yeah.
same as
And
today.
my I remember sitting in the newsroom one day, and there's a vice president of Dow Jones. America Online had just come out, and so I'd signed up for it. And the cool thing about AOL at the time was you put the disk in, you said sign on, and it just signed you on.
That's right.
And
You've got mail.
it was great, and it did in one step what you would need. It replaced 2 or 3 steps that you would need to
Right.
get onto a CompuServe or something.
Right.
So I showed him this, and he looked at it, and he's sort of shaking his head, and he goes, we don't have to worry about this because we're Dow Jones, and customers will always beat a path to our door. We don't have to worry about being easy to use. This guy's an incredibly smart guy, and he was completely wrong.
Well, Gates was wrong about the internet for years.
Yeah.
So it's not an IQ thing. I think it's probably a healthy dose of skepticism because they've been through so many hype cycles, which I think the three of us are going through the hype cycle of AI and generative AI. So AI has been around for a while. Generative AI, next thing. Again, if you line up 10 people and say, what's the difference between AI and Gen AI? Most people probably couldn't even explain the difference between the two. So we're in that hype cycle, and so we're not cynical. We're just waiting for this to see the real impacts, especially as it relates to work.
Yeah. And don't forget also that AI sort of had some momentum in terms of buzz, because people have been calling things AI for 7, 8 years.
Right.
I mean,
Machine learning. Yeah.
Machine learning, but like there's time clocks out there that is still marketed as being, it's an AI powered time clock. And just please, I mean, just please.
Struck a nerve with Mark right now.
No, I'm the same. I'm of the same way. When people ask me, generally speaking, when they ask me buyers, especially practitioners, hey, what's the separation? Is AI overhyped, underhyped, or appropriately hyped? And what I generally say is, listen, go do a demo of live software, and you don't have to get into the inner workings of what AI is. You probably do want to ask some ethical AI questions. You probably do want to ask some audited AI questions, but look at the outputs of AI. So you don't necessarily need to know how a fuel-injected car works. You do need to know that it takes you from place to place. And so you can kind of get past some of the, it's hard in work tech, HR tech, recruiting tech. It's hard because there's so much hype.
Right. I think that's true. And the thing is, hype drives purchasing decisions. I mean, look at Tesla. How many people bought Tesla for the automated driving that doesn't work?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. 100%.
It's the same kind of thing. And I think if most people, if you ask them, what do you want AI to do for you? Their answer isn't really going to have may or may not have anything to do with AI.
Right.
It's just like, I want to do something that's really, really hard for computers to do. So I guess AI will handle it. That's not a really great reason to spend a lot of money, but I think people are doing it.
Right.
Yeah, and they have for all of time in there, and I think they'll continue. Mark, interested to get your take on what are you seeing for the remainder of 2024? What do you expect to happen in this?
Made 11,000 predictions.
Right.
You only got like 3 of them right, so you're good. You're in good company.
All right. Well, it's like hold the envelope up to
Just
my.
rub the head,
Is
get
that
the
a Johnny
genie going.
Carson
Let's go.
reference?
You know, in terms of technology, I don't think. I think this is going to be an extension of 2023. You know, in 2022, we can look back and say that's when ChatGPT came out. That sort of started the brush fire.
Right.
And the brush fire burned all through last year. I think that we're going to see the brush fire continue. I think it's going to spread. But I think it's going to cool off a little bit because people at this point are getting used to hearing about AI.
Right. They're not beaten with it.
Right.
They're
So
probably overwhelmed with trying to keep up with the different things that they can do with AI.
yes, yeah, and it can and can't do. I don't
100%.
think anybody's done a study yet of like how many people have purchased AI solutions for the wrong reasons.
Oh,
You
100%.
know, generative AI to like do data entry, which it doesn't do. But
Well, a lot of those, I think, personally, I think we're going to see a ton of acquisitions this year. I just think that the market's going to consolidate because it needs to. Some of these firms that can't raise money anymore, they're on their last, their vapor, and so they need to get at some type of exit, something out of it. So I think you're going to have, I don't know, a fire sale, but I think you're going to have a lot of acquisitions that are going to be kind of must
yes,
be acquired.
yeah.
But you add that to the ones like Deel, or what Anderson did with was it Udacity, right?
Udacity.
Oh
They
yeah,
bought, so Anderson consulting firm buys a learning management company to teach AI to its employees and customers. So like, okay, now that's actually kind of interesting what they're going to do with that. We'll probably never know what they actually do with it because it's going to be going to be using it with their customers.
Right.
But so it won't be publicly facing, but it'll probably make them better consultants.
Yeah, make them better consultants, and it'll extend the life of their customers as well.
Yeah,
good point.
I think
Back to the business.
they saw an opportunity in learning.
Right.
Yeah.
Enough of an opportunity to want to buy a platform.
Yeah, and I think the other thing we're going to see, William, to kind of piggyback off what you're saying is consolidation, but not just in our space. There's a lot of these. We all know this. There's a lot of these little AI companies that are out there. They're nimble, they're flexible, they move at they're gone, right? They do things super fast, and they've got really smart people. Google doesn't have all the smart people. Right, these little companies that are in garages have really super smart people that know what they're doing in this area, and they're getting acquired for that reason.
Let me ask you a conceptual question, both of you. Should we be at this stage? Should we be looking at AI like we look at apps? You try something, doesn't work, you delete it.
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Well, define that a little more, though. Are you talking like the AI apps or just AI in general?
No, just AI like when somebody comes up with a company, because in the world of you're either a company, a product, a feature, right? It becomes smaller and smaller. So sometimes these companies come to market as really a feature, but they come as a company. So you have to discern this as an investor, or otherwise you have to discern: is this a feature? Is it a product? Is it a suite? Is it a platform?
Yeah.
Is it a company? Like, what actually is this? I know it's a company name. I got that part. I got the URL, and I looked at the copyright at the bottom. It's a company, but is it really a company? And so that's what got me to think about how we used to, probably still do. We'll try an app. We'll just search for something, try something, like, and if it doesn't work, like in the first 30 seconds,
just get rid of it. Yeah.
Delete. I just wonder if it's that.
I don't think so, because what people don't seem to grasp, AI isn't the product. That's vendor space. No one's going to go do a big implementation
of AI
and then decide, I don't like this one. I'm going to go back. I'm going to go to Microsoft.
Right.
It's people ultimately, the end users are going to judge the product, and I don't think they care about the technology.
I don't think they should care. I'll even
No,
go further.
they shouldn't. What's interesting is I've gone to several vendor conferences where the vendors are up there talking about AI. They're
Don't care.
talking about their product roadmap. They're all
Don't care.
excited. And then they say, "Oh, by the way, we've we've added this new feature that lets you upload 3 spreadsheets at once," and everyone bursts into applause.
Yeah.
That's what gets the user excited.
Yeah.
Right.
Helps
Yeah.
them.
I was at a Ceridian one years ago, and David said he was doing a presentation. He was actually in the software doing a presentation, and he goes, you know what's really interesting is we have a lot of payroll clerks and people that manage payroll. They want to be able to, like, they're in and they see a diagram or they can run a pie chart or whatever the bit is, and they would screenshot it, and then they have to then put that in PowerPoint.
Right.
He said we just added a little button
It's a little button.
up at the top, and it just says create PowerPoint slide.
Yeah.
And like the entire room of analysts was like, "Oh, that's dope." Like that's, I mean, first of all, the fact that you took out all those steps for those poor people that had to go and do all that stuff, that you just hit a slide, it creates a slide off the side. That's it.
Yeah.
Like, now, did AI do that? Did some other thing do that? No one cares.
It just
No one
does
should
it.
care.
Today they would roll that out under the banner of a new AI feature.
100%.
You know,
100%.
um,
Well, if it in the background rolled up a report to you that you could connect the dots that you couldn't see, right? And said, by the way, you might not know that this is happening, bloop, and then now you can make a PowerPoint slide out of that. I'm okay with that, because I do like the fact that AI, with its combined intelligence, can see things that we can't see, in
yes.
theory.
Yes.
No, that's not theory. That's actually fact. All right. If it can render something that I can't see, I'm down.
Yeah.
I'm down to consume that whatever that is. But I don't need to know how the zeros and ones work.
I was going to say, but yeah, what's cool to you at that point is that it rendered this thing.
Right.
You really don't
Right.
care that much about how it does it, and
Zero given. Yes.
it makes sense. Look, we're all in HR tech industry, so we care about not just what the product does, but how it does it. But
Yeah.
I think sometimes everybody in our industry, people on the vendor side, analysts, us, we kind of forget, like, everyone who's using HR tech
Yeah.
has a certain agenda, whether it's practitioners using it to get a bunch of stuff done as quickly and cheaply as
Painlessly.
possible,
Yeah.
or whether it's the CIO who's worrying about the support costs and the implementation costs.
Yep.
There's stuff that has nothing. It doesn't
It
really
impacts
have much to
impacts
do.
work.
It
It
impacts.
impacts work, and to go further, it impacts the experience of work, right? So, like, and we've talked about this several times, that the technology that you purchase for your company, not only is it supposed to do the things that everyone said it was supposed to do, and it's better than what you have. So, whatever your displacement theory is, if it was post-it notes, you're moving to a new tech, great. If it's ripping out one tech and you're putting in a new tech, it should be better. But that experience of interacting with that technology should be better for everyone that's involved. So if that's employees, if that's candidates, whatever the bit is, whoever's interacting with that technology, it should be an upgrade.
Yes. But we're also at this funny point in AI's development where we can't predict all of the things that
Agreed.
will go wrong. When another Dow Jones story, if you'll indulge me, is one night we were working and the whole newsroom everything crashed, and we found out that the service was inaccessible to users, and they called all of the data people in, all of the director, everyone was in. It was a big deal. And after 3 or 4 hours, one of the operators in the data center, He walked by what's called the event printer. Every transaction that the mainframes did was recorded on that printer. He looks over at it. He noticed it was jammed. So he cleared the jam and everything came back up. No one could have predicted
No.
that, you know?
That's one of those deals that just plugs it back in. Oh, there you go.
It
Electricity.
works.
Shocking.
You know, you think about it, somebody wrote a piece of code that says, do this operation, print it out, move on to the next one.
Right.
It never occurred to them that if the printer gets jammed.
See, it's the unintended consequences.
That's where we are in the AI.
Have we opened up Pandora's box?
And we're going to discover all of these things.
It's similar back to the internet story. We discovered a whole bunch of things with the internet.
Yep.
Yeah, and we're still discovering things with the internet that probably unintended consequences, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Ryan, you want to close us out? You brought us in.
Yeah. Thank you all for listening. Mark, thank you so much for coming on. It's nice to see you once again. We will have to do lunch, and I'll take you up on that because I like to eat.
I'll
But
be
if
watching
you're
the subscription list.
Yes. If you're still listening this deep in, that's fantastic. Like us, love us everywhere. If you see us out there, say hello. We'll see you next time.